Good evening and welcome everyone once again. We return to the regular meeting of the board after a short recess, and I would like to rise and report on items dealt with in Committee of the Whole closed session. These items pertained to personnel issues for principal and vice principal appointments. Please rise for our acknowledgement and national anthem, and please turn off your cameras while this occurs.
We would like to acknowledge
that we are here today
on the traditional territory
of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation.
Nous tenons à reconnaître que nous sommes sur le territoire traditionnel
des Mississaugas de la Première Nation de Credit.
Oh, Canada.
Once again this evening, I invite trustees to ask questions on the reports by staff, and all questions by trustees can be placed in the chat, and I will facilitate asking them and identifying the trustee who has raised the question. Item number 5, there are a couple of amendments to the agenda this evening. We will convene into Committee of the Whole open session and will position that as item R7, and rise and report on the Committee of the Whole and position that as item R8. We will also acknowledge April 28th as National Day of Mourning and position that as item 8.3. With those amendments, I now approve the agenda for this evening. I have no conflicts to declare, and I now move that we convene into the Committee of the Whole open session. This evening, we have a delegation from the Peel Elementary Teachers Local, and I now invite I believe it's President Bannister Clark who will start, so I'll invite her or her members from her team to please start the delegation. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Gail Bannister Clark, and I am a teacher at the Peel District School Board. And I'm here tonight delegating to the board as the president of the Peel Elementary Teachers Local, representing our 7,000 members. I am here with my fellow teacher colleagues and PETL vice presidents and organizers, Vikita Bat and Felipe Pereja. We are here because those in leadership in this province have failed students and workers and families throughout their 4 years of leadership, and particularly through this pandemic. The Peel District School Board is under the governance of the Ministry of Education, and we are here tonight to advocate for Supervisor Rodriguez to implement measures that will keep students and staff safe. Our board is in crisis, and as our employer, there is a legal responsibility to ensure we have safe places to learn and to work. You're muted, Vikita.
You're muted, sorry.
2022, sorry about that. Over the course of this pandemic, the government has been ineffective in stopping and curbing the spread of COVID-19. Because of their delayed response to this overwhelming and ongoing crisis, something that has had the effect of putting the lives of Ontarians at risk. Dr. Kieran Moore's announcement of lifting mask mandates in schools as of March 21st was yet another example of this government's ineffectiveness and ideological decision-making, jeopardizing the health of students, families, communities, education workers. Over the last 2 years, we have looked and are continuing to look to the Peel District School Board to lead a safe and cautious response to COVID-19 based on science and data. Recently, Ontario's Children's Health Coalition issued a statement calling for masking to be maintained in indoor school settings to protect children and their families amidst the sixth wave. The Ontario Science Advisory Table was also not consulted on the recent decision to lift the masking mandate in schools. Based on the advice of pediatric medical professionals, it's critical that we proceed with an abundance of caution and that we act now. For more than 2 years, teachers and education workers have been contending with different rules inside classrooms than those that exist in similar high-risk settings outside schools. We have worked in a context of crowded classrooms, air quality concerns, unknown COVID-19 case counts in schools, and only a 55% first dose vaccination rate amongst elementary students aged 5 to 11. Moreover, students in junior kindergarten are still ineligible to be vaccinated at all. These children deserve to be protected, as do their families and the school staff who support them. The premature lifting of the mask mandate has the potential to result in further disruption to student learning and impact student mental health and wellness. Arguably, we are already seeing this now in the context of the sixth wave. As education workers, we know that the most equitable form of schooling is in person. This pandemic has disproportionately impacted Black, Indigenous, and racialized students. We must do better. We cannot afford any further gaps in learning or preventable adverse health outcomes. Decisions to drop restrictions during an ongoing pandemic should be based on science. We urge the Peel District School Board to do the right thing by reinstating the masking mandate for staff and students until the end of the school year. This important layer of protection will prioritize the health and safety of students, families, communities, teachers, and education workers. The Ottawa-Carleton District School Board and Thames Valley District School Board have recognized this and recently voted to implement a mandatory masking mandate with necessary exemptions for staff and students who cannot. Let's do the right thing and follow suit. Mandatory masking must be reinstated.
The lack of safety measures in our schools has led to unfilled absences and widespread staffing shortages, something that has been an escalating issue throughout this school year and which continues to impact many schools throughout the board. The lack of mandatory masking has exacerbated an already unmanageable situation. Unfilled absences have led to missed preparation time for teachers, additional unexpected planning, and increased supervision duties for educators, creating an overwhelming additional workload during an already turbulent year and having detrimental impacts to teaching and learning. The impacts that these staffing shortages are having in our schools are myriad and are far-reaching. In addition, specialized and support programs are being collapsed in order to cover classes without a teacher. Collapsing special education and other support programs means students are not receiving the support they deserve and need, and to which they are legally entitled. Additionally, English language learner supports have become far less available to students in need. The collapse of teacher librarian programs, as well as specialized curriculum programs like French, music, physical education, and others, have led to reduced instruction for students in these important curricular areas. Unqualified supervisors have been employed to cover classes, leading to further impacts on learning. In order to ensure quality of learning and safety of students, as well as to maintain working conditions and wellness of staff, the Peel District School Board must implement mandatory masking immediately to the end of the current school year, make the decision to close schools if they're unsafe due to a lack of available staff, and address the issues of supervision and reduced instruction in schools. It is time for the Peel District School Board to act. Taking action now will demonstrate that the board truly prioritizes the health and wellness of students and staff. Thank you.
Thank you for your delegation, President Bannister Clark and Vice Presidents Bott and Perea. I now ask if the trustees have any questions of clarification. All righty. Seeing none, I'm in receipt of the delegation and refer to staff. And I would also encourage staff to reach out to Dr. Lowe and perhaps invite him to also come and speak at our next meeting on this issue as well, perhaps. Let me just rise and report first, and then let's deal with another issue at the same issue at the same time, perhaps. I'd first like to rise and report on the Committee of the Whole open session. The item dealt with a delegation on the issue of safer schools. And now, since we have just dealt with the issue of COVID-19, I would like to move item 16.1, COVID-19 update number 17, I should say, to this point in the agenda. I would invite the delegates to stay for this item and just want to remind you that the chat function is for trustees and not for delegates. And I would also like to remind you to please leave the meeting room after the discussion on this item and invite you to observe the balance of the meeting via live stream. So if we could move to item 16.1, COVID-19 update number 17, Director Swaroop.
Thank you. Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I will now ask David Morgan, Coordinating Principal for Pandemic Response, to provide the COVID update.
Thank you, Director Swaroop, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. As part of the Peel District School Board's ongoing commitment to student learning and safety, the board is responsible to operationalize and cooperate with the guidance, orders, directives, and mandates of the Ministry of Education, Peel Public Health, and the Chief Medical Officer of Health. Please accept this oral report as a summary of recent updates. The Peel District School Board values transparency, and as such, schools will continue to inform families and staff members when they become aware of a positive COVID case via a letter which is sent to students and teachers who have interacted with the positive individual. As an additional layer of transparency, all Peel schools continue to report daily absences to the Ministry of Education through the absence reporting tool. If a school in the board reaches a 30% absence rate, they consult with Peel Public Health to determine if that rate of absence is potentially due to COVID. In instances where Peel Public Health feels that COVID may be impacting this high rate of school absence, they issue a letter to the entire school community to both inform the community and provide infection prevention and control recommendations. This letter is also shared with trustees. Between April 1st and 24th, 7 high absence community letters were issued. Following the issuance of a high absence letter, Peel Public Health continues to monitor the level of absence at the impacted school for 3 to 5 days to ensure that absence rates begin to decline. In instances where absence rates remain persistently high, Peel Public Health holds an in-depth consultation with school administration and the COVID team, followed by another community letter with further recommendations. In April, 1 Peel school engaged in this additional consultation process. When a member of a school's teaching staff is isolating due to COVID and is still well enough to teach, and there are no supply teachers available, principals may temporarily move a class online in consultation with their school superintendent. In the month of April, 33 classes were moved temporarily online. The Peel District School Board recognizes that there has been an increase in staff and student absence in the month of April, as evidenced by the increase in classes moved temporarily online and 30% letters issued. As such, the Peel District School Board is working closely with Peel Public Health to limit the spread of COVID in a variety of ways. Throughout the pandemic, the Peel District School Board has followed the direction and guidance of the Ontario Ministries of Health and Education, the Chief Medical Officer of Health, and Peel Public Health. The board values the insight and expertise of our public health partners. In recognition of the fact that mask wearing is an effective way to limit the spread of COVID, and following the guidance of Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health and Peel Public Health, the Peel District School Board strongly recommends that all students, staff, and community members wear masks while indoors in Peel schools. The board will continue to supply all students and staff with high-quality masks upon request. School staff will continue to be provided with non-fit tested N95 and/or KN95 masks. The board looks forward to working in partnerships with employee groups, students, families, and trustees to encourage masking in Peel schools. The Peel District School Board will continue to provide students and school staff with rapid antigen tests to ensure that, should they become symptomatic, testing is readily available for them. The board will also continue to supply rapid antigen test kits to school-based childcare centers to ensure that all members of the school community have access to testing. The board continues to encourage good hand hygiene practices by providing all schools and workspaces with hand sanitizer. As vaccination is the most effective tool for mitigating against the risk of contracting COVID-19, the Peel District School Board is working in partnership with Peel Public Health to provide communities with school-based vaccination clinics. In the month of April, the board hosted 23 COVID-specific vaccination clinics. Between April 1st and 24th, these clinics gave 1,665 doses in total, 386 to children between 5 and 11 years of age, 213 to youth between 12 and 17, and 1,066 doses to adults. We are proud to be supporting the increased uptake in vaccination rates amongst 5 to 11-year-olds. As of April 25th, 52.4% of children aged 5 to 11 in Peel have received 1 dose, and 34.1% have received 2. 94.6% of youth aged 12 to 17 have received a first dose, and 91% have received 2 doses. An additional 19.2% of youth aged 12 to 17 have received a booster dose. As part of the Peel District School Board's ongoing commitment to public health beyond the pandemic, Peel Schools also hosted 21 routine school immunization clinics in secondary schools in the month of April. Throughout May, the board will continue to support vaccination against COVID and routine school immunization with both school hours and community hours clinics in elementary and secondary schools. In conclusion, in our consultation with Peel Public Health earlier this week, it was shared with the board that wastewater data in the region is showing a plateau of transmission. Furthermore, the Peel region continues to have the lowest case rate of all public health units in Ontario. The Peel District School Board thanks all students, staff, and families for doing their part to limit the spread of COVID through vaccination, masking, testing, and staying at home when you are sick. Thank you, Director Swaroop, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Principal Morgan, for your report. And prior to entertaining questions from trustees, I would like to acknowledge that trustees have been diligent in bringing forward questions and concerns from their constituents relative to this issue throughout the pandemic. So at this time, I would invite trustees, if you have any questions, to please ask those now. Question from Trustee Green. Our staff and students' safety must be a priority. I guess it's a comment. And I think that Director Swaroop, I think you agree with the comment from the trustee, if you have anything else to add.
I absolutely agree with that comment, Supervisor Rodriguez, and I would ask our Superintendent of Caring and Safe Schools to provide some additional information in the ways we are ensuring student and staff safety. It's over to Superintendent Ted Byers.
Thank you, Director Swaroop, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. Yes, safety is absolutely paramount importance, and certainly the Peel District School Board is in constant consultation with the Peel Public Health and does offer a number of COVID infection prevention and control strategies, so IPAC strategies. In addition to strongly recommending masking for all members of the community, the board also utilizes the following strategies. First, as vaccination is the most effective defense against COVID-19, the board continues to host school hours and community vaccination clinics to ensure that all students and staff have the opportunity to become fully vaccinated and boosted against COVID-19. Secondly, the Peel District School Board continues to supply rapid antigen test kits to students and staff who may become symptomatic. In this way, students and staff are able to stay at home when unwell and make health decisions based on the results of testing. In this way, the board limits the number of symptomatic individuals in schools. Thirdly, when schools become aware of positive cases, they continue to report these cases to impacted classes and cohorts. In this way, students and staff are able to closely monitor themselves for symptoms of COVID and, when appropriate, test themselves using the rapid antigen tests. Fourthly, the board also continues to monitor absence levels at all Peel schools through the Ministry of Education's absence reporting tool. When a school community exceeds 30% level of absence, school administration consults directly with Peel Public Health, who offers guidance to the entire school community and monitors the situation for 3 to 5 days following. So COVID infection prevention and control is best done using a variety of strategies such as those I've listed. And the Peel Board's support of vaccination and testing and community notification, hand hygiene, respiratory etiquette, and masking provide a holistic approach to keeping our schools as safe as possible during this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Byers. Next question is from Trustee Lawton. Thanks for this report. Are you aware of our current board-wide fill rate? Director Swaroop.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I will ask Superintendent Ted Byers to respond.
I don't have, thank you, Dr. Swaroop, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I don't have the fill rate numbers in front of me, but I do know that certainly the board acknowledges that there are absences on staff and that those sometimes go unfilled. The board has provided rather a number of strategies to school principals, administrators in order to support them to address that concern. Those strategies are specific to both elementary and secondary school environments. In order to ensure that students are adequately supervised and that education programs can continue. I defer to other colleagues for specific numbers around fill rate absences, but as I said, I do know that we provide supports to schools in order to meet that need when it does arise. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Byers. Question from Trustee Brad McDonald. Thanks for the delegation and report. If everyone is strongly recommending masking, why are we not making it mandatory with exceptions as before? Director Swaroop.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I pass it to Superintendent Ted Byers to respond.
Thank you, Director Swaroop, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. Certainly the board agrees that masking is one effective safety measure to prevent and control COVID. Which is why the board strongly recommends that all students and staff and families wear masks while indoors at Peel District School Board locations. And furthermore, the board continues to supply all members of the learning community with high quality masks. Staff are supplied with non-fit tested N95 or KN95 masks. And while we support individuals' rights to make a choice to wear or not to wear a mask, we certainly call upon all community members to strongly consider wearing a mask to protect themselves and others while indoors. And throughout the pandemic, the Peel District School Board has followed the directions and recommendations of the Ministry of Health, the Chief Medical Officer of Health, and the Peel Public Health. And there have been times when Peel Public Health has made recommendations that exceed ministry expectations, and the Peel District School Board has followed these. For example, I refer to the mandating of full masking in kindergarten earlier in the pandemic when that was not directed by the ministry. But at this time, Peel Public Health is not recommending a mask mandate in Peel schools. And as we respect the expertise of Peel Public Health, we continue to follow their recommendations as we have done for the duration of the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Byers. Are there any more questions? Trustee McDonald, thanks you for that response as well. Seeing no more questions, again, thank you for your report. Thank you to the delegates as well for their delegation. Really appreciate the background that they also provided. I'm in receipt of the COVID-19 update number 17. Moving on to item number 7.1, Asian Heritage Month of May. In May 2002, the Government of Canada signed an official declaration to designate May as Asian Heritage Month. This acknowledges the long and rich history of Asian Canadians from East Asia, Southern Asia, Western and Southeast Asia, and their contributions to Canada. It also provides an opportunity for Canadians across the country to reflect and celebrate the contributions, resilience, and resolve of Canadians of Asian heritage towards the growth and prosperity of Canada. At the Peel District School Board, our collective commitment to improving the well-being and achievement of all students means confronting xenophobia, anti-Semitism, and dismantling the systemic mechanisms that enable anti-Asian and anti-Jewish hate. Our publicly stated commitments to anti-racism, anti-oppression, and pandemic health and safety protocols ensure that this occurs through engaging, equitable, and inclusive online and in-person learning modalities and through culturally relevant program opportunities. We also celebrate Jewish Heritage Month in May. The recognition of Canadian Jewish Heritage Month in May of each year through parliamentary legislation reinforces the important contributions that Jewish Canadians have made to Canada's social, economic, political, and cultural fabric. Jewish Heritage Month is an opportunity to remember, celebrate, and educate current and future generations of the meaningful and motivational roles of Jewish Canadians throughout this nation. The contribution of Jewish Canadians to the heritage landscape of Canada is evident in sports, the arts and culture, in government, the business and legal worlds, academia, and medicine. Throughout the month of May, we celebrate the contributions Jewish Canadians make to our great country and our great province. We also celebrate South Asian Heritage Month in May. South Asian heritage is indicated by the significant South Asian presence throughout the world. Diversity is exemplified in the languages, cultures, and faith practices, which are a blend of the influences from Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. The South Asian Heritage Act of 2001 established the foundation upon which South Asians whose origins are or can be traced to the Indian subcontinent can see themselves reflected in the fabric of Ontario and our schools. In recognition of South Asian Heritage Month, the Council of Agencies Serving South Asians, often known as CASA, has identified this year's theme as mental health supports and advocates. The initiative is part of CASA's ongoing work to mobilize the South Asian community's voice and action towards Canadian and global justice by creating spaces for conversations, learning and unlearning, and bridging gaps within and between communities. In keeping with Bill 104, the Peel District School Board schools will recognize Tamil Genocide Education Week, May 11th to the 18th, to raise awareness on Tamil and other genocides that have occurred in world history. We also celebrate Education Week from May 9th to the 13th in 2022. The Peel District School Board's annual celebration of Education Week will be held May 9th to the 13th. This is our chance to share and recognize the work, passions, and achievements of students, staff, and school communities as we celebrate excellence in education. I encourage you to tune into PDSB's social media channels, where the board will be sharing stories, ideas, and resources for celebrating all week long. Moving on to item number 8, Peel IT Staff Support and Media Support Services Appreciation Day, May 11th. Wednesday, May 11th is Peel IT Support Staff and Media Technology Support Services Appreciation Day. These teams of Peel District School Board help drive the board forward, and we want to thank them for helping deliver rich learning experiences, highlighting staff and student accomplishments, and building upon the board's relationships within the school communities and collaborators. We, as you know, experience that as well in our board meetings and committee meetings through the IT staff that support us as well, and a special shout out to them. I would like to acknowledge all of our retirees and thank them for their many years of dedicated service to the Peel District School Board. We wish you every success in your future endeavors. This month's retirees are Ian Armstrong, Amarjeet Ajula, Denise Baker, Kathleen Bezaire, Catherine Bray, Jason Brown, Paula Burns, Don Carter, Valerie Carter, Susan Clark, Peter Cochran, Janet Cunningham, Valerie Cunningham, Sherry Dalson, Louis DeAndre, Sabrina Dennis, Ellen Feldman, Colleen Fitzgerald, Edilberto Flores, Tina Ford, Renuka Joshi, Jean Kay, Leslie Kempton, John Kerr, Susan Kowalik, Marie-José Landry, Carmela Lapicherilla, Douglas Lee, Janet Lewis, Lisa McGee, Loida Marcilla, Susan Matthew, Jane McGee, Lois McGinn, Paul Murphy, Susan O'Brien, Lisa Palmer, Ellen Phillip, Judith Phillips, Warren Phillips, Judith Pollard, Nancy Posset, Tracy Pulak, Renu Ramraj, Doris Rosenstock, Walter Rudkin, Patricia Sade, Natalie Schneider, Michelle Shelby, Carlos Silva, Krishna Singh, Jennifer Spencer, Susan Spiteri, Caroline Stewart, Carrie Strachan, Shane Talbot, Anna Tappenden, Dahlia Tessie, Alexandra Kulja, Janice Rakulja, Lisa White, Max Williams, Suja Zachariah, and Dobrila Zubak. Again, thanks to all of you for your many years of dedicated service to the board. Moving on to item 8.3, National Day of Mourning. The National Day of Mourning was first declared and observed by Canadian Labour Congress, CLC, in 1984. The day is now observed in over 100 countries around the world. Historically, the National Day of Mourning, held annually on April 28th, has been to honor and remember those who have died, were injured on the job, or who contracted an occupational illness. The day allows us to reaffirm our commitment to all workers and work towards preventing workplace tragedies. The theme of this year's day, as identified by the CLC, is Work Shouldn't Hurt, Make Health and Safety a Fundamental Principle and Right at Work. Moving on to item number 9, there are no announcements this evening from the chair, and there is no report this evening from the student trustees. Item 11, there are no reports from the trustees appointed to external organizations. And item 12, the Director's Leadership Report, Director Swaroop.
Thank you, Supervisor Rodriguez. Good evening, trustees, staff, and community members. I want to begin by recognizing that today, April 27th, is Administrative Professionals Day. And I want to thank all administrative staff in schools and workplaces across Peel District School Board and express my heartfelt appreciation for everything you do for the students, staff, and families each day. You play a pivotal role in helping to create positive learning and working environments. So I wish you a very happy Administrative Professionals Day. Excuse me. April is World Autism Month, and it is an important opportunity to increase understanding and acceptance of people with autism. Our goal is to ensure that all Peel students with autism can reach their full potential. And I've seen firsthand the dedication of our educators and support staff to foster acceptance, understanding, and inclusion within their learning environments. And one of the many highlights was the unveiling of a commissioned permanent art installment at the Central Board Office by artist Aidan Lee. Our artist is an 18-year-old abstract painter with multiple diagnoses: autism, ADHD, and anxiety, which he references to as the 3 A's. Aidan worked with 5 Peel District School Board students in grades 7, 9, and 11, and encourage the students to express themselves through art. He created the exhibit called Conversation Cloud, and it includes artwork the 5 students designed in collaboration with Aidan, who led the workshops. It's an incredible celebration of the creative talents of our students who were joined by their proud families for the official unveiling. It is a beautiful, vivid exhibit, and it is on display in the atrium at the Central Board office, so I encourage you to visit when you can. I'd like to share a video taken from the event highlighting the importance of showcasing diverse voices through the arts.
So Erica and I were working together on a call out to all schools in Peel to be involved in an art exhibit to celebrate Autism Acceptance Month.
I came up with the idea, why not create something that shares your voice, something that includes voice and how each voice is unique to each person. And then obviously Miss Erica did her magic and was like, how about we include some students with neurodiverse abilities and to incorporate them into a piece. And I was like, why don't we call it the Conversation Cloud? So this art exhibition that you see behind me is a one-of-a-kind collaborative design project that connects viewers, students, teachers, and community to the importance of being heard, of being accepted and respected for who each and every one of us are. Our voices are our most unique factor and really defines who we are.
I decided to put into 5-side community. A tech side, a geek side, a jokester side, a fashionista side, and a media side. Like Aiden said, they're like these 5 fingers. When they work together, anything's possible.
I showed one of my drawings and Miss Glover, I guess, talked to Aiden and stuff, and I ended up getting in the group to start the project.
It's not just about the final product. It's about the learning experience that the students have as they develop as young artists.
That was so amazing, and to meet the students in the atrium, it coming back to life after the pandemic with all protocols being observed, and to have the students there was an incredible experience. In April, we also had the opportunity to honor the official naming of Nibi Emersodang Public School, reaffirming Peel District School Board's commitment to healing and reconciliation by taking a step towards fulfilling the calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada. Nibi Emersodang is from the Ojibwe Nation and means the water walker. The name recognizes the work of water rights advocate Josephine Mandamin, an Anishinaabe grandmother, an elder, and a founding member of the Water Protectors who walked around the Great Lakes to raise awareness of our needs to protect Nibi, which means water, for future generations and for all life on the planet. Before I share a video from the naming ceremony, I'd like to once again recognize the leadership of the Peel District School Board Indigenous Education team, who worked with the Mississaugas of the Credit River Métis, the Indigenous Network, and the Credit River Métis Council to develop a fair and inclusive naming process rooted in an understanding of settler colonization and its impact on First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. I'd also like to thank all the students, staff, current and former families of this school who participated in consultations throughout the naming process. And now, let's play the video.
My name is Amanda Carroll, and I have the role of Vice Principal here. And on behalf of the school, we are honored to welcome you here today, and we are humbled to hold the name Nibi Umasadang at this time.
What we are commemorating today is much more than a new school name. We are reaffirming Peel District School Board's commitment to healing and reconciliation by taking a step towards fulfilling the calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada.
I'm really happy to be a part of your very special school naming ceremony today. And I'm really grateful to all of you that were involved in doing the work to make this happen. I know it was a lot of work.
Bonjour. Ogajige Higanin and Dishnakas. Magazine Dodam. Mississauga and Dow. New credit, Dunje.
Nibi Masadong, this is more than just a name for us here. This is a new beginning and it's an opportunity. And as has been said by a few people, it's a process. We're at the beginning of the process, but it's a process which, as we work through it, is not just going to, make a statement with a new name, but teach us and allow every member of our community, the staff, the students, the parents, to really delve deeper into Indigenous history, Indigenous culture, and Indigenous values.
We just wanted to say how honored and grateful we are to be invited to this beautiful ceremony and to have an opportunity to share our gratitude and thanks.
And as you saw, it was a very, very special, momentous event. And now I'd like to give an update on the ministry directives. As we continue to engage in deep and transformative work to fulfill the ministry directives, we are listening and responding to the narratives of Peel students who highlight that anti-Black racism continues to negatively impact their schooling experience. As we move forward, student voices and experiences continue to inform our strategic goals and guide school equity improvement planning to create learning environments for students grounded in authentic, student-centered, data focused on equity and deep learning. This evening, we will provide an update on Directive 18, which is the equity audit. This work will help to assist Peel District School Board staff to address the absence of representation of underserved students and the intersectionalities of their identities from the learning environment, materials, and resources. The information gathered from the audit will be used to inform educator practices with a clear focus on culturally relevant and responsive resources. Peel District School Board students play an integral role in system transformation as their voices and experiences are indicators of change. As I visit schools across Brampton, Mississauga, and Caledon, I connect with school staff and they share about the ways they are creating meaningful learning opportunities for students to develop their critical thinking skills and global understanding. At a school in Caledon, the principal shared with me poems students had written where they critically examined the negative effects of racism and the need to build a shared understanding in how we work towards inclusive learning environments. The work we do in our classrooms is crucial, and educators play a key role in fostering equitable learning environments where students see themselves reflected and their identities affirmed through our teaching practices. Also, this evening, a report will be presented on Directive 15, Senior Team Professional Learning. This focused learning is an important aspect in the greater change process being undertaken by the Peel District School Board to dismantle and disrupt systemic anti-Black racism, anti-Indigenous racism, and other forms of oppression. We will continue to focus on the application of the theoretical learning in our decision-making to ensure we have a more equitable, just, and anti-racist education system for all students, families, staff, community members, and all other stakeholders. We remain committed to engaging in meaningful work beyond the directives. I'm pleased to announce a school partnership entitled Study Buddy, a research and pilot project in collaboration with Ryerson University, which has been co-planned and overseen by our Leadership, Capacity Building, and School Partnerships Department. Study Buddy is a free online tutoring program that we are offering to 4 elementary schools in high priority school settings. The tutoring program started this Monday and will run until August 2022. Tutors for this program are mostly university students who have been hired and trained by our school board. Students will benefit from up to 3 hours a week of free tutoring sessions that will focus on math and literacy. Study Buddy will promote the achievement, human rights, well-being, and dignity of all students with a particular focus on Black and Indigenous students. This initiative aligns with our collective work, addressing the ministry directives by supporting school teams in addressing achievement disparities among underserved students and by creating wraparound support for families. This opportunity for our students will also help mitigate the impact of pandemic-related educational disparities by augmenting the individual supports to our students. Next, I will speak about Heritage Month recognitions. As indicated earlier by Supervisor Rodriguez, Heritage Months are designated to learn about celebrating various groups, histories, accomplishments, and contributions to Canada and globally. They are important to recognize as they also help many of us better understand our own cultures and identities in addition to others. May marks the celebration of Jewish Heritage Month, Asian Heritage Month, and South Asian Heritage Month. And we have many learning resources and activities planned that will help educators teach about each history and culture, combat negative narratives or stereotypes, and promote an inclusive, supportive environment for all. Canada is rich with diversity, as reflected in our Days of Significance calendar, which is posted on peelschools.org. We are proud to celebrate and honor the vibrancy of the Peel community. Peel District School Board will be celebrating Education Week during the week of May 9th. And Education Week is an opportunity to celebrate teaching excellence and student achievement. This week, we will find inspiration in the students, staff, families, caregivers, and communities who are connecting, collaborating, and supporting each other to create safe, equitable, and inclusive learning environments for students to thrive and flourish. Please follow our Peel District School Board social media accounts throughout that week for highlights on the amazing things students are doing inside and outside of school, and how our educators and staff are going above and beyond for the students and the work the greater community is doing to help promote a positive learning experience. And I would like to recognize Peel IT support staff and Media Technology Support Services Appreciation Day, which is on May the 11th. Peel District School Board's IT team works relentlessly behind the scenes to keep us connected, cyber secure, and up to date with the latest systems and software. They are invaluable members of our team, helping us teach, learn, and expand our capabilities through technology. Media technology support services are the creative photographers, videographers, and technicians who shine a light on the work we do at Peel District School Board by capturing the moments, experiences, and personalities that help tell us the story of Peel District School Board. They also produce e-learning modules and train our staff and students to create their own audiovisual materials. Thank you to the IT professionals and media technology support services staff for sharing your expertise with us each and every day. With that, I conclude my remarks for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Swaroop, for that, for your remarks. We've completed item 16.1, and so we move on to item 16.2, Ministry Directives, Directive 15, Senior Team Professional Learning Update. Director Swaroop.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I will ask Associate Director Paul De Silva to share the Directive 15 update.
Just prior to that, I'm sorry I jumped ahead. There's a couple of things that I missed on the agenda. My apologies. If we could just wait on that and just return back to item 13.1. Part of the consent agenda, and the only item on the consent agenda pertains to notice of appointment of 2 trustees and 2 alternatives to the OPSPA Board of Directors for June 2022, June 2023. Item 14, which is 14.1, minutes of board meeting March 30th. I approve the minutes of the board meeting for March 30th, 2022. Item 15, I'll deal with all of them 1 through to 5. I'm in receipt of the minutes of the meetings of the Special Education Advisory Committee of February the 17th, 2022, the Parent Involvement Committee, March 3rd, 2022, Special Education Advisory Committee, March 29th, 2022, the Audit Committee, March 31st, 2022, and the Physical Planning, Building, and Finance Committee of April 6th, 2022. Again, sorry about that, Director Swaroop. You can proceed with item 16.2.
Thank you, Supervisor Rodriguez, and through you, it's over to you, AD De Silva.
Good evening, and thank you, Director Swaroop, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. I would like to provide you with an update on Ministerial Directive 15. The ministry report outlined through Directive 15 that the board shall develop a robust, comprehensive, and strategic professional learning plan for senior staff on equity, human rights, anti-bias, and anti-Black racism. In February of 2021, the Peel District School Board presented the Senior Team Professional Learning Plan to the board and subsequently to the Ministry of Education. This report is an update to the report submitted in 2021. The Ministry of Education's review of the Peel District School Board 2020 and several other historical reports outline that school boards have taken responsibility for the systemic racism that is endemic to the public education system. Instead, communities and students have been blamed for the problems that stem directly from racist and colonial educational practices. The ministry review states, we call for a new style of leadership in the PDSB and other boards facing similar circumstances. Leadership that has, through rigorous assessment of its own strengths and weaknesses, demonstrated the capacity to face the evidence of systemic inequity and to grasp the complexity of the issues facing those less able to advocate for themselves. The task for those leaders is to bend best efforts and our education systems into effective service for all. The Senior Team Professional Learning Plan is focused on building the capacity of senior leaders in Peel District School Board in order to eliminate the disproportionate outcomes facing Black and Indigenous students as noted in the PDSB data. The Senior Team Professional Learning Plan outlined in this report is one strategy in a greater change process being undertaken by the PDSB to dismantle and disrupt systemic anti-Black racism, anti-Indigenous racism, and other forms of oppression. The curriculum outlined in this report also informs the learning for other groups within the organization, example, family of schools, departments, and schools, which will inform the work of departments and school improvement planning. Some of the professional learning that the senior team has specifically undertaken in full is in the report. However, I'll share with just a few based on themes. Procedural fairness, training focusing on human rights, administrative law, and application of the ED Act. School-based, culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy and anti-racist and anti-oppressive learning and application related to students and learning environments that serve students. Corporate-based, application of anti-oppression frameworks to ensure high-quality customer service and decision-making that is anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and based on human rights. The structures currently in place as a senior team to undertake the learning are as follows. Senior team learning meetings, which happen monthly, Board Improvement and Equity Team meetings, formerly ISS, now called BIET, Board Improvement and Equity Team, led by Central Superintendents, which happen monthly. Operational Support Services, OSS, led by Senior Managers and Controllers in collaboration with Associate Director of Operations, Equity of Access and Support Services, which happen monthly. Field Superintendent meetings, department and topic specific professional learning, and weekly institutional accountability roundtable, where problems related to ABR are discussed with the departmental leads. With respect to accountability measures that will be leveraged to measure the outcomes of the senior team, it's important to know that the Superintendent of Education Equity Leadership Framework competencies will be used to form the basis of superintendent appraisals and their superintendent work plans. Some tools to measure those outcomes are supervisory officer performance appraisal, demonstrating connections to equity leadership framework competencies, senior teamwork plan, indicators and commitments tied to equity in the board improvement and equity plan, documentation from superintendent and associate director conversations directly related to disrupting anti-oppression and anti-Black racism, and in turn reflected in schools' improvement and equity process. Qualitative and quantitative data from FOS, artifacts and observations. Superintendents will apply their learning when monitoring schools using the SEEP guiding framework to ensure that schools that demonstrate work connected to the equity framework and ministerial directives is shared with associate directors. These are just a few that are named today, but there is a fulsome list that is embedded within the report. Lastly, there will be continued reporting on the progress of our work and outcomes. Regular progress reports will continue to be shared moving forward through board meetings and through the director's annual report shared publicly each year. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, A.D. De Silva. Thank you, Director Swaroop. Do the trustees have any questions about Directive 15? Seeing none at this time, thank you again, and thank you for the comprehensive report.
Thank
you. Moving on to item 16.2B. First, I'm in receipt of Directive 15 for the minutes of the Senior Team Professional Learning Update. Moving on to item 16.2B, which is Directive 18, Comprehensive Diversity Equity Audit of Schools Update Report. Director Swaroop.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I will ask Associate Director Logan to present the report on Directive 18.
Thank you, Director Swaroop, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. At the October 27th, 2021 board meeting, the first update on Directive 18, Comprehensive Audit of Schools, identified the various ways that Peel District School Board has applied Directive 18 to engage in the reassessment of student achievement and well-being, student discipline, special education programs, and pathways using anti-racist and anti-oppressive principles. The report outlined current assessments in the areas of special education, student discipline, student achievement, student well-being, and the various auditing practices. The purpose of this update was to provide an update with regards to the direction around Directive 18 and some newly developed structures designed to support implementation of this directive and the respective mandates and deliverables. The structure of the new equity audit will support the development of appropriate criteria, tools, and procedures designed to support schools with the requirements to conduct a comprehensive review of their name, mascots, libraries, learning materials, resources, and environments. I will now call upon Donna Ford, Superintendent of Equity, Indigenous Education, Anti-Racism, Anti-Oppression, and School Engagement, to provide an overview of the report.
Thank you, Associate Director Logan, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. The release of the Equity Audit School Learning Environments is intended to provide a system process by which classroom educators, principals, and vice principals can attend to the well-being and success of African, Black, and African Caribbean students by using critical frameworks to challenge racism and intersecting forms of oppression, rethinking their classroom design and instruction, including the Eurocentricity of the curriculum, assessing those components of the instructional program that may affect the well-being of Black students, including representation in the text and learning resources selected for instruction. All of the aforementioned are components under review in the audit. The audit will be piloted in schools May and June so that the Equity Audit Committee can garner feedback on any further adjustments needed to be made. K-6, K-8, and a selection of secondary schools will participate in the pilot. By test driving the audit, we wish to ensure that no aspects of classroom redesign, the application of critical frameworks, and the addressing of those aspects of the program so that Black students' well-being and success is assured are overlooked. This feedback will be reviewed in July and August. The tool will be refined for full system implementation to all schools, September 2022. We know that many schools, through their superintendencies, have already implemented audits. Those schools will be provided guidance and will be encouraged to identify points of synergy with what they have already done and the system tool. Nevertheless, no matter the starting point, all schools will be provided with instructions on how to use the audit tool. Because of the priority of the audit process to ensure anti-racism, anti-oppression principles are the baseline practice in all Peel schools, the tool includes a completion report that is to be shared with the Superintendent of Education. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Ford. Thank you, AD Logan, and thank you, Director Swaroop. Are there any questions from the trustees? Just to begin with, one question that I have, Director Swaroop, is around once the audits are complete, is there a plan to bring the results to the board?
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I will ask Superintendent Ford to respond.
Thank you for the question, Director Swaroop, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. Because we have put in place a completion report to ensure that all schools have participated in the audit as part of our continued ongoing communication to the board and to the public in terms of the ways in which PDSB are addressing the directives, a report will be forthcoming.
And is there an anticipation of that timeline? I heard you say the audit would be in place for September of 2022, and then is there a timeline for the completion of that audit to bring some of those results back?
So I anticipate that the time that will be taken would be at least the first term, so between September to December, to give us a window so that we can bring back a complete report.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Seeing no further questions, thank you again, Superintendent Ford, for your work on this, and AD Logan and Director Swaroop. Really appreciate the work. I'm in receipt of Directive 18, the Comprehensive Diversity Equity Audit of Schools Update Report. 16.3, the use of Peel District School Board Resources Policy and Elections Policy, Director Swaroop.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I will ask Governor's Officer and General Counsel Catherine Lockyer to present the report.
Good evening, and thank you very much, Director Swarup, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. There are two policies that are necessary and related to the upcoming elections, and drafts of these are appended to the report for consideration and approval. Municipal and School Board Election Day is Monday, October 24th, 2022. Provincial Election Day is June 2nd, 2022. The purpose of the report and policies is to provide information and guidance during the months leading up to the provincial and municipal elections. The elections policy and use of Peel District School Board resources policy outline rules and procedures during the election campaign period to help to facilitate a fair and transparent election process for candidates, third-party advertisers, electors, and PDSB employees. We have also prepared some guidelines for staff based on the policies to assist with managing issues that may arise due to the provincial and municipal elections. Some of the issues covered in the guidelines include school visits, role of current trustees, school events, distribution of materials, school councils, request for information, campaigning, and social media. We've created a web page for the election, and we'll be posting these policies, the guidelines, and other resources and links, such as links to the local municipalities' web pages regarding the election. This will all be launched over the next few days. With respect to the use of school board resources policy, the Municipal Elections Act requires the board to establish rules and procedures with respect to the use of school board resources during the campaign period. A campaign period runs from the date that nomination papers are filed with the municipal clerk until December 31st, 2022, as per the Municipal Elections Act. Candidates can register their nomination papers at the local municipality clerk's office as of May 2nd until August 19th. The purpose of the policy is to provide a consistent approach and direction regarding the use of resources during an election campaign. Generally, there is a prohibition against the use of board resources for any election-related purpose. The policy is intended to ensure compliance with the Municipal Elections Act, ensure candidates and registered third parties are treated fairly and consistently, safeguard the integrity of the election process, establish the appropriate use of PDSB resources during an election period in order to ensure accountability and a transparent election practice, and to avoid the appearance of PDSB support for particular candidates. With respect to the election policy, the policy recognizes the right of PDSB employees to participate in political activity and balance that against the legitimate interest in having a public service that both is and appears to be impartial and neutral. In particular, the political activity provisions address the need for that balance between an employee's right to engage in political activity and the requirement of PDSB employees and designated employees to be politically impartial and neutral. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Governance Officer and General Counsel Lockyer. Thank you, Director Swarup. We have a question from Trustee Kathy McDonald. In the report, there are timelines, 2023 example in school naming. Will a report around this come to the board also?
I think that question may be perhaps for the last report. So I would.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I will ask AD Logan to respond to that question.
Sure.
Thank you, Director Swarup, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. And yes, there are in the report, you will find that there are 3 specific audits that have been outlined to focus on 3 areas. And yes, there will be a report back as part of the comprehensive auditing report that will speak specifically to the school naming aspects identified in the report.
Thanks, AD Logan. Are there any other questions from the trustees pertaining to General Counsel Lockyer's report? All right. Seeing none, I approve the recommendation of the use of Peel District School Board Resources Policy attached as Appendix 1 and the election policy attached as Appendix 2. Thank you again to General Counsel Lockyer, and thank you, Director Swaroop. Moving on to 16.4, Secondary School Achievement 2021-2022 Semester 1. Director Swaroop.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I will now ask Superintendent Bernadette Smith, Superintendent of Research and Innovation, to present the report.
Thank you, Director Swaroop. And through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I will ask Research Manager Lynn Hollingshead to provide a summary of the Secondary School Achievement 2021-22 Semester 1 report. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you, Superintendent Smith and Director Swarup, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. This evening, I would like to present to you the report on the Peel District School Board Secondary School Achievement for 2021-2022 Semester 1. This report covers a focus on trends of pathways for grade 9 and 10 mathematics and English due to de-streaming for grade 9 this year, and trends of credit accumulation for grade 9 to 12 students, including disaggregated outcomes by several social identities. This report uses data from report cards of secondary school students in grades 9 to 12 for the school years 2018-19, 2020-21, and 2021-22. Results from the 2019-20 school year are withheld due to limited data available as a result of the job action and the start of the pandemic that year. The report focuses mainly on the first semester of these years for comparison purposes. Data represented in this report represent students who are working towards an Ontario Secondary School Diploma, or OSSD. These data were connected to the identity data collected in the 2018 student census. Within the report, you will see disaggregated outcomes by race, gender identity, socioeconomic vulnerability index, sexual orientation, special education status, and English language learners. Two key highlights that I'd like to point out for you is that the data shows that de-streaming at grade 9 presents a promising practice, and that in grade 10, students who identify as Black, Indigenous, and Latin American continue to face disproportionate systemic inequities. The following are highlights of the next steps articulated in this report. Professional learning opportunities for administrators and teachers focusing on diverse learnings in a de-streamed secondary classroom will be provided over the balance of the current academic year and through 2022 and 2023. Short-term interventions have been put in place to support student credit attainment and address current staffing shortages. And we will continue to expand the de-streaming programs in both grades 9 and 10 as we move forward. To ensure ongoing transparency in the monitoring of secondary achievement, this report will be provided twice a year after the end of each semester. Thank you. Any questions?
Sorry about that. I was on mute. I was on mute. I'm asking questions to myself and not getting any answers, which is not uncommon. Sorry about that. Thanks again, Researcher Hollingshead, and thank you, Superintendent Smith and Director Swaroop. One question, if the trustees don't have any to begin with, the researcher just pointed out that it seems that de-streaming is a promising practice for grade 10. Could you give us some background indication from the data as to how you came to that conclusion, please?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. When we look at the data for grade 9 students, so this year the schools de-streamed grade 9 mathematics and English across all schools. And when we look at the data for students who, disaggregated by race in particular, what we see is that a marked improvement in the percentage of Black students and Latin American students. There wasn't enough data to report on Indigenous students, but we can see a large number of Indigenous students this year taking the open de-streamed math class and the academic English class in comparison to previous years. And so great news that they're having a better opportunity, more opportunity to move forward into the pathways towards the option of university pathways rather than being limited through the applied pathway. When we look at the preliminary, because it's only semester 1, average math marks and English marks, we didn't see a marked change from previous years. So despite the fact that more students were in the class together or taking the same stream of class, it didn't, their outcomes were about the same. So we didn't feel, it doesn't look preliminary as if the streaming option was a detriment for the students, but rather a benefit. And so we would expect to see that same sort of pattern, because when we look at the grade 10 data, there is a large proportion of students, particularly Black, Indigenous students in special education, who are in the applied stream, and we would like to see that change so that they have the same opportunities to achieve a university option if they wish.
Thank you, appreciate that. The other question that I had is on credit accumulation. When I looked at the charts on credit accumulation, you've got sort of benchmarks in terms of those credit accumulations. So in grade 9, obviously the 4 credits from semester 1. In grade 10, you've got the 12 credits, which is the 8 from the grade 9 plus the 4 from grade 10 semester 1. And then in grade 11, you go to identify it, I believe, as 2 less than the total, so 16, so 18, I think, around there. And in grade 12, I think you've identified it as 26. The question that I have is, when I look at that data, it seems like the disaggregation, specifically in terms of Latin American students, there seems to be a lower percentage of students achieving in that grade 10 set of credit accumulations, and then it reverses back in grade 11 to Black students in terms of that low achievement of total credit accumulation. Do you have any ideas to, or speculation perhaps, as to why that change as students sort of move from grade 9 to 11, there seems to be greater credit accumulation in one disaggregated group than the other, and then reverts back in grade, seems to be in grade 10 and reverts back in grade 11. Is there any particular reason for that?
Thank you for the question, through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. The population of Latin American students in PDSB is fairly small, so we could have a cohort effect where in a particular year, a small number of students will make a significant difference in the percentages. So that could be one explanation. And then you've noticed that in grade 11, we're no longer adding 8 credits per year, because by the end of grade 12, students don't need 4 times 8 credits to graduate. And so that lost credit that might have happened in grade 9 or 10 becomes irrelevant, so to speak, by grade 11 if they have managed to make the 4 credits at the beginning of the semester, so that appearance of falling behind may disappear when they get to grade 11.
Thank you. Appreciate that, and I appreciate the context of the N in terms of the numbers because I didn't see that in terms of what the total numbers were for the Latin Americans versus the others. So I appreciate that context. Great. Those are all of my questions. I don't know if the others have any, if the trustees have any. If not, Thank you so much for that report. It's very helpful, and look forward, obviously, to others forthcoming. So thank you. I'm in receipt of the Secondary School Achievement 2021-2022 Semester 1 as information. Item 16.5, Resolution Re-Signing Officers, Director Swaroop.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I'm going to ask Associate Director Gill to present this item.
So thank you, Director Swaroop, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. As a result of staff changes, the report includes the updated list of individuals who will be authorized to sign on behalf of the board. So I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Thanks, A.D. Gill. Are there any questions from the trustees? I believe this is strictly housekeeping in terms of the movement, so appreciate that. Thank you again. And I approve the resolution re-signing officers. 16.6, Appointment of Peel District School Board Student Trustees 2022-2023. Director Swaroop.
So through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I'm going to ask Governance Officer General Counsel Catherine Lockyer to present this.
Thank you very much. And through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I'm going to actually call upon the student trustees who will be doing the introductions.
Hello, everyone. So through you, Supervisor, it is my pleasure to start off this little oral report on student trustees that will ultimately reveal who the next elected student trustees are for the upcoming school year. So as many of you know, Selena and I are currently serving as the student trustees for this year, and we've had the opportunity to learn so much and do so much and just like meet so many people. And honestly, it's just been like the experience of a lifetime. And so before we tell you who the next student trustees are, we wanted to explain a little bit more about, like the election process and the role and responsibilities of a student trustee, because eventually this is what the incoming student trustees will be doing. So in our role as student trustees, we were elected to ensure that student voices are heard, acknowledged, and sought out during decision-making, and essentially just kind of acted as a link between the students and the school board to make sure that students were aware of everything and involved with their education and their schools and their community. So throughout the year, we've had many opportunities to do that. So for one, Selena and I have been a part of the General Assembly of OSTA-ACO, the Student Trustees Association of Ontario. And so we've been able to learn so many things about education and social change from student trustees all across Ontario and bring ideas and suggestions back to our board, but also share things going on here with others. So we've also been a part of OSTA's working groups, which have allowed us to also create change on a provincial level as well. Another group that we've had the time of our lives working with is the Peel Students President's Council, or also known as the PSPC, which is a group of 8 elective executive members who, like us, act as representatives of Peel students. And by working closely with the board, this council brings attention to student issues and also promotes leadership and community involvement opportunities. But other than that, we've also been just throughout the year in countless meetings and have had opportunities to co-create events with the board and talk to different student groups as well. And although it has been a huge responsibility, being in this role has also been super great, and being surrounded by both students and staff who care about student voice has just been really inspiring. And the process for electing 2 very important upcoming student voices, the student trustees, was also a very fun time from which we learned a lot and as well. And so I'm going to pass it off to Selena to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so hi guys, I'm Selena. As you may know, I'm the student trustee for South currently, and I'm going to talk a bit more about the campaign period for our trustees this year and how exactly that worked, and some cool things that we found happening and that we want to maybe try out for next year. So as you guys might know, the campaigning period was between March 22nd to April 12th, 2022, and then students voted online on April 21st and April 22nd. So during this period, the students were asked to send in their promotional materials for their campaigns. So all those who were candidates would send in their promotional materials, and there was no social media campaigning, but rather it was done on a board level, so then we could have everyone on an equal playing field. So then all the students and the candidates would have an equal access and opportunity to hear from and share their platform with the students around Peel. So we had an all candidates meeting where we had all the students come in. It's the same as it was every year, where they come in, they have like a few minutes to talk about their platform, to answer 2 generalized questions, and then they would just move on towards the rest of the candidates, so then all the students can hear from the candidates. This year, however, unfortunately, we were not able to get out the word as much for the all candidates meeting, so we decided to do something to almost like make up for the candidate meeting, but also as work as an extension to the candidate meeting, so then students across Peel can get to know their candidates better and then make a better informed vote for the student trustee for the year after. So what we did was we did a almost Q&A period-esque all candidates meeting, where we had a Teams meeting open and there were multiple different breakout rooms. We separated our trustee candidates into different rooms of 3 or 4, just like very few candidates, and then we allowed students to go into whatever room they like to ask these trustees specific and specialized questions to their platform and to exactly what they wanted to hear from their candidates. And this was like almost like a drop-in basis, where we had everyone collected into like this main room at first, and then when we broke out to the breakout rooms, students could drop in as they please to ask whichever candidate they want, whichever questions they want. We found that this format actually worked out quite well, because not only were students able to share their platform more effectively with their students who are going to be voting for them, but also students from Peel were better able to, like get to know these candidates and really like ask them, what are you going to do for us next year? What are your goals and priorities for next year? And then they can share that, so then they can make even better informed vote. So we found that this format was actually quite interesting, and we hope that it's also put in place for future years to come. I'm going to pass it back to Divanita to kind of talk about the number of candidates that we've gotten this year, which is actually quite amazing.
Thank you, Selena. And so, as you mentioned, like this year, like the campaigns and the elections were super interesting. But I think that like the best part about it, or like my favorite thing about it, was just seeing how many candidates there were. So this year we had 22 candidates from the north and 12 from the south, which I think is the most we've ever had. And from what I've heard, more candidates than at any other school board as well. And so it just makes me really happy and like proud to have seen like so many amazing students go for this role, because it takes a lot of time and courage and hard work. And I guess I'm just really happy to know that so many students care about student voice and the board and just like their education. And so like throughout the process, like me and Selena had the pleasure of speaking to a lot of these students like one-on-one, and like they're just like really smart and amazing, and I'm just glad that I could be a part of this in any way. And so I have no doubt that every single one of these candidates is going to go on to create so much positive change, not just at our school board and in their schools, but just in the world in general. But that being said, I think it's finally time to introduce the incoming student trustees for the 2022-23 school year. So, being the North student trustee, I will begin by introducing the newly elected North student trustee. So, without further ado, your next year's student trustee for Peel North is Avneet Athwal. So Avneet, if you really quickly want to turn on your camera, just say hi, your name, your grade, and your school, that would be great.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. Hey. Sorry. For some reason my camera's not turning on.
That's okay.
I'm
We can't hear you anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe we can proceed with students.
sorry.
There we go. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Hi there. I'm so sorry. I don't know why that happened, but hi everyone. My name's Avneet Atwal. I'm in grade 11 and I go to Harold M. Brathwaite. I am so excited for this new chapter in my life, and I can't wait for this whole journey and for everything to happen. I'm just overwhelmed with so many feelings right now.
Awesome.
Thank you, Avneet, for introducing yourself. We're super excited to have you. And now I will pass it on to Selena to introduce the South trustee.
Yeah, so as a South trustee, I'm going to be introducing the incoming South trustee for Peel. And her name is Evelyn Lee. So if you'd like to turn on your camera as well and introduce yourself, tell us your school, your grade, and a little more about yourself, feel free to do so.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Evelyn Lee, and I'm a grade 10 student from Arundel Secondary School. And, as a strong believer in student voice, I'm just so honored that I can now be part of change on a higher level and work in conjunction with all of you and the students. And it's with much love that I say I'm very grateful for being elected into this position, and I just can't wait to see what great things we can achieve together. Thank you.
Thanks, Evelyn. We're super excited to have you as well, and we're really excited to work with you and see what you guys are up to for the upcoming year. So I'm going to talk a bit about the transitionary period between us outgoing trustees and our incoming trustees as well. So because they're elected before our term ends, we have quite a bit of time to work that transitionary period to make sure that our incoming trustees know the ropes for next year, and then also kind of show them around and make sure that we can help student voice be amplified to a better level for next year. So during this transitionary period, we will have a couple of meetings with Avneet and Evelyn, one-on-one with me and Deepanita, and we're just going to tell them about our experience as trustees this year, any projects that we're going to be working. Oh, hi Avneet, we can see you, by the way. Any projects that we've been working on this year that we want that they might be interested in continuing next year, or that they might want to look at for the following year. Also about some of the procedures and processes of being on the board. And we also want to really introduce them to OSTA-ACO, which is the Ontario Student Trustees Association. They can get involved on a provincial level and with the other student trustees in boards all across Ontario. So we're hoping to really introduce you guys to the OSTA-ACO Association, and so you guys can get to know people from outside of Peel Board as well. And finally, the OSTA-ACO AGM is coming up soon, which is one of the final conferences with the student trustees from all across Ontario. I believe that Avneet and Evelyn will be able to attend, so we're also hoping to kind of show them around during that conference and spend more time to be able to help them ease into the role of student trustee so they can help amplify student voices for the upcoming year. I'll pass back to you, Anita.
So yeah, as Lena mentioned, we just want to do everything we can to make Avneet and Evelyn's transition and just their entire term as smooth as possible. So even just introducing them to everyone we know and just giving them a tour of this board office, even though I don't think we know exactly where everything is yet. Because fingers crossed, all the board meetings will be in person next year. We just want to do whatever we can. I know Shivoham and Pragyan, last year's student trustees, were really great at helping us transition into our roles this year. And I know that even now, I text Shiv every other day asking questions, and he's really helpful. And so I hope that Selena and I can be the same for Avneet and Evelyn. And so with that, I think that's all we have for the student trustee agenda for tonight. Avneet and Evelyn, we are so glad to have you guys here. And I think you guys are in for a really good time. But yeah, that's it for us. Thank you, everyone. And back to you, Supervisor.
Thanks, student trustee Sen and Zhao. You two you're just an absolute joy. Each time we have you on, your energy, your passion, and your brilliance are just so evident and most welcome. So thanks also to your trustee mentors, Trustee Crocker and Sohi, who have been helpful as well throughout the year. Welcome, student trustees Atwal and Lee. We are absolutely delighted to have you as well, and I'm sure you will be equal to the task as our student trustees Sen and Zhao have been. So with that report, I approve the appointment of Avneet Atwal and Evelyn Lee as Peel District School Board student trustees for the 2022-2023 school year. Congratulations to both of you, and a warm welcome to you, student trustees Atwal and Lee, on behalf of all of the trustees. And in the chat, if you can't see it, all the trustees are certainly putting forth their congratulations as well, and they are equally as delighted to have you. A special thanks again to the student trustees Zen and Zhao for all your work this year and your support with the election process. That was very kind of you to be as involved as you were. And we are thankful that you are still with us for the next few months. So thank you again, and your appointments have been approved. We look forward to working with you. Moving on to item 17, trustee motions for consideration. There are no trustee motions for consideration that were introduced at a previous meeting. Trustee notices of motion. There is a notice of motion regarding Ontario Student Records Stewardship. There is a trustee notice of motion at the behest of Trustee McDonald, Kathy McDonald, regarding Ontario Student Records Stewardship. The notice of motion reads as follows. Whereas school boards must ensure that they collect and store personal information in accordance with the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, whereas both the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, which applies to schools operated by school boards, and the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, which applies to provincial and demonstration schools, prohibit institutions from releasing personal information in their custody or under their control to anyone other than to the person the information relates, except in certain circumstances, whereas boards should develop their own consent forms, which they must use where the consent of the parent or adult student is required for the release of information from the student record card. Whereas under the Education Act, only supervisory officers and the principal and teachers of the school have access to the OSR for the purpose of improving the instruction of students. As noted, additional access may be permitted under municipal and provincial freedom of information legislation under specified and limited circumstances, whereas the Education Act Section 171, subsection 38, states that boards must institute a program of records management that will, subject to the regulations in respect of people records, whereas the OSR is maintained by the school to provide relevant and updated information for students, parents, teachers. This record is essential in making possible decisions about the individual educational needs of each student. It is the official and confidential record of a student's academic achievement in the Ontario school system and is initiated at the point of the student's entrance into the Ontario system. The OSR system consists of the OSR folder, an office index card, student achievement forms, French language instruction card, documents, photographs, and information in writing inserted in the record folder with the approval of the principal, whereas the OSR must be retained by the school for a minimum of 55 years after the student's retirement from school. Special regulations governing the maintenance of and access to these records are covered by law in the Ontario Education Act and Regulation. Whereas if a student is under the age of 18 years and residing with their parent, the parent/legal guardian must provide written consent for the release of information from SIS or the OSR to a third party. If a student is 18 years or older, or 16 or 17 and living independently from his or her parents, the student must provide written consent for the release of information from the SIS or the OSR to a parent or legal guardian or third party. Be it resolved that the Peel District School Board develop a strong policy to monitor and control the access to all SIS and OSRs in its stewardship. Be it resolved that the right people are given the right access to the right information. And be it resolved that the Peel District School Board invest in technology that will have the capability to track each time a student's SIS or OSR is accessed, and that every single system that maintains every record is auditable. Be it resolved that once the Peel District School Board has the capability to track and audit access to all SIS and OSR records, that all staff, both permanent and casual, be given robust training. And be it resolved that all staff be required to sign a confidentiality agreement that, once broken, will trigger the PDSB to investigate any breach and impose, if necessary, sanctions and/or terminate anyone that breaches any student's privacy. That is the notice of motion that will be looked at the next time. Trustee Dakroop, thank you for seconding the motion. We will bring it forward in May. And having no further business to attend to this evening, thank you all for your attention and your participation. I adjourn the meeting of the regular board and have a wonderful evening.